I love that graphic that Deb, I assume, chose for illustrating this week's talk. I can't begin until I thank Barbara and Janine for last week's talk, because it was so healing to me, and it was probably one of the best services I've ever been to. And I think it's a good part of why I can stand up here today. It's been a rough month or 3. But I know you're all with me in that. So anyway, a couple of weeks ago, my mind started turning around on what to speak to you about today, and I get little nudges from Spirit, and I was experiencing some inner turmoil and was seeking peace through inner inquiry at the time. And I asked myself, what do you want? And the answer arose: serenity. It came immediately and clearly. And as I explored that further, what is serenity? The information that followed made it clear to me that serenity is another way of seeking love. So I could see a pattern in myself that repeated and included looking for peace and serenity in places like other people, a bigger bank account, a cookie jar. You know, when I talked to other people about this title, and Deb Jensen was one of them, she said I could write a book on that. I think a lot of us could. You know, it's I don't know if I want to say natural, but it seems that we turn to something easy to fill the hole, and it doesn't. And it takes a while sometimes in life to learn what really is filling us up. We're pretty trained in life to seek fulfillment in the outer. I know for me in school, I was more interested in getting the information in and spitting it back out in a way that gave me A's on tests than I was in integrating that and in really processing it. And I don't think I'm alone. I think that's kind of what our educational system does. In relationships, we may feel we need to mold ourselves to others' decisions in order to find alignment with them and seek the love that we want and the approval that we desire. When we feel unfulfilled, when we're afraid, when we feel unlovable, we might seek to find fulfillment in constant doing, in activity, in overcommitment, in eating, or other compulsive and addictive behaviors. So today I want to take a look at that. I want to take a look at the inner hunger and how to really quench that thirst in a way that is truly lasting and fulfilling, instead of looking for love in all the wrong places. Wrong just meaning it doesn't really give us what we want. I don't want you to take that as a judgment. It's not wrong to eat cookies. It's just it just doesn't really give us what we want, does it? So it's funny. It's funny that, and tragic, that sometimes when I'm seeking to create a lesson for you, I start to get all kinds of lovely trials to show me. But this time, what came to me as I asked about this lesson was a memory. I think it was about 5 years ago, and I was living in Akron, Ohio, in the downstairs at that time of a a duplex, and the only thing on the block besides that house was a big parking lot that served the temple across the street. So I'm a very quiet person most of the time. And if anybody knows me well, they know that I relish silence. It's necessary to my sanity. The extreme introvert needs to be nourished in that silence. So here I was living in this nice quiet home in a lovely neighborhood, much like downtown Grand Junction. And that day I had a busy schedule. I had 2 weddings, and they were in different parts of the county. And so I had really been on the go and involved with a lot of people and a lot of conversation, and was really looking forward to coming home and replenishing. So I came home, and it happened that that particular day in that neighborhood, the Highland Square neighborhood, there was a festival going on. It was the Porch Rocker Festival, which means that different families hosted bands on their porches. Well, as I came home and I turned down the street, there was people everywhere. There were cars parked solid on the streets. About 3 houses down, I noticed a beer garden was also set up, which added alcohol to the mix. And so I arrived home and I settled into my recliner, ready to just let go of this busy day. And it turned out that that particular year, the stage for the grand finale was set up in that parking lot right next to me. So there was a 10-piece band that played literally non-stop for 2.5 hours. Didn't even give you a chance to take a breath. It was a brass band. So my body and my home were just being vibrated by that. One song after another. And to add to that, the leader would every once in a while say, "Everybody say yay!" And 150 people were gathered out there responding to that. So that was the next 2.5 hours, and let me just say I wasn't a happy camper. So I searched my mind for solutions, and I found none. I think it's so interesting that Susan picked that song that said, when we ask, we don't know the answer, but God does. I can't get the right line right now. But so I was searching, let me tell you. And the headline of "Distraught Minister Arrested in Protest of Porch Rocker Festival" just didn't seem to ring true to me. It wasn't the message I wanted to put out there with my ministry. So it turned out that, knowing my penchant for quiet well, a friend called me. She knew I must be in misery. So she was deeply compassionate. And it was that injection of love that turned everything around. You know, my solution would have been, all of you go home and stop this noise now. But God's solution was compassionate friend. And she somehow moved me to a place with her compassion that helped me to find peace without enacting any of those radical fixes that were going through my mind. So isn't Spirit so generous? Of course, this is a minor example. My life wasn't going to be affected by that noise if I didn't let it. But it's one that we can use to explore the question and bring a lightheartedness. This is the reason for my colors and my hat today. It's bringing lightheartedness to us, to me, to you, to everybody. It sometimes seems that when life is pressing very hard on us, and we all feel that right now in different ways, we just look for love and peace in the wrong places, in places that don't serve us. An unnamed author once wrote, "Serenity is not freedom from the storm, but peace amid the storm." Today, I want to explore how to find that peace. Sometimes I just picture being in the eye of the storm and knowing all of that swirling around me, but it doesn't affect who I am. That night, I found peace first in surrender. There was nothing I could reasonably do to change the situation. My friend's deep compassion was the beginning of my shift, and after her call, I was able to quiet my frustration, make a different choice, and I began to affirm that with every beat of that bass, it calmed me, and that sort of worked. For a long time in my life, I completely distrusted the idea that I should surrender. Surrender seemed to me it could be a path of abuse. I felt it meant giving up my power. But what I've come to understand is that when we surrender, we're actually opening to a greater power. We're acknowledging something beyond this human vehicle. And I love the expression, let go and let God. But those of us who've been in charge, whether it's of a family or a company or basically just finding our way through life, and our culture supports us totally in taking charge. And that's not bad. But there's times when we just have to let go of that idea that I have to do this. Everything's going to fall apart if I don't take charge. And sometimes we need to just let go and let God. It's not to say that we shouldn't take responsibility. This is another way of taking responsibility for our lives and our energy. We have a constant companion, our divine partner. And when we can take the hand of that divine partner, we truly find that we can move forward through challenge. When we feel that challenge, this is the time to become still, to explore the edges of that strain that we're feeling. Turn to whatever source you call your divine partner and say, I now let go. I relax into the safety of divine love now surrounding me, always surrounding me. I'm not alone. The help I need is always available to me. At times when I do this, I can literally feel loving arms enfold me. And sometimes I hear the words, I will not let you fall. It's only through surrender that we can touch this deep presence, when it feels like we're being stretched to our limits. Surrender opens the door to peace and allows new avenues to appear that help us and come to our assistance with divine love. One of my dearest teachers, Dr. Wayne Dyer, often spoke of this concept, And he said this: like a drop of water separated from its source, the little mind is unable to create and sustain life. When the drop of water rejoins the ocean, it has all the powers of its source. The drop of water separate from its source symbolizes our ego self, when we are separated from our source of omnipotent power. When we surrender, we let go of ego, and we allow the Spirit to nourish us with all its infinite resources. Another way of transforming a challenge in our lives I've found to be greatly helpful is to sit still and say, what is the gift? If we truly believe that what we profess, that there is only one presence and one power, then there can be found in a challenge, in every challenge, a gift, a seed of good. And then we focus on that seed, and it's like watering a plant. It nourishes it, and it begins to blossom and grow in our lives. Another example from the life of Wayne Dyer illustrates this principle. Many of you know that at age 3, Wayne's father deserted the family, after which his mother found it necessary to release Wayne to an orphanage, where he was until he was 10. So even though Wayne Dyer rose above all those challenges in his early life, and he found a strong spirit within, going on to earn his PhD and writing many, many books that influenced others, Wayne confesses that he still felt angry. He felt angry with his father because of what he went through because of his father's abandonment. So the story goes that in his 30s, Wayne made the decision to go to his father's grave with the intention of telling his father his anger, expressing his anger. But when he came to the gravesite, he was so moved with a feeling of love and forgiveness. And he received the gift then, that the challenge that he'd been given as a child by his father's abandonment had for him. He saw how every experience he had strengthened him. He credited his experience with changing he credited that experience at the gravesite with changing the trajectory of his life. And writings from that point reflected his deep journey, offering many of us inspiration. The date of that experience at the gravesite was August 30th, 1974. On that exact date, 41 years later, Wayne Dyer made his transition into a different life in spirit. Interesting. When we seek the answer to the question, where is serenity? The highest places of wisdom answer. When we seek love and serenity from people and things outside of ourselves, the answer is never the one that brings that kind of fulfillment. As I explored these questions and the practices of self-compassion, I saw how they fit together. You've heard me talk about self-compassion in the past. We often find that even those who display a most compassionate heart to others struggle mightily to give it to themselves. The practice of self-compassion is one of the ways that love manifests. When you show compassion to yourself, you find yourself acting with kindness, tenderness, and love towards everything and everyone else. Instead of mercilessly judging, criticizing yourself for various inadequacies or shortcomings. Self-compassion means you are kind. You're understanding when confronted with personal failings. After all, isn't that idea of perfect so misconstrued? We're perfect as we go through these struggles. They strengthen us, they teach us when we open ourselves to allow that to happen. I think that's one of the beautiful things about unity, is that we're never judged or criticized as we stumble along this path. We're there to take each other's arm. We're there to stand up together. We're there to learn, to open, to grow, to be the greater expression of the Christ Spirit that we are. I found great inspiration in exploring the idea of self-compassion in the work of Dr. Gail Brenner in the book The End of Self-Help. The subtitle of the book, by the way, is Discovering Peace and Happiness Right at the Heart of Your Messy, Scary, Brilliant Life. She says it's about being as kind to yourself as you would be to a little child who's hurting. Instead of judging yourself, sit with your feelings. Allow them to be there without trying to change them. We grow through these things. We grow through them. Simply being aware is already being compassionate. Being aware is infinitely kind because you stop fighting your own experience. You move into that awareness that your feelings are part of your human condition. Who you truly are is infinitely kind. When you judge your feelings, when you notice self-critical thinking and fear, you've taken on an identity created by conditioning. This is not your divine spirit. Compassion offers a welcoming invitation to meet all the disowned parts of yourself with an accepting heart. You no longer expend energy avoiding these elements, and instead all of your energy is about embracing them. In this acceptance, you become whole, and you realize that who you truly are is this vast, accepting space that is all-inclusive and free. So I want to take us right into an experience that you can put to use in times of turmoil. So if you'll just settle yourselves as you would for meditation. This meditation is just a little bit incorporated today. So I invite you now to take a deep breath. Close your eyes and become very quiet, focusing within. Find that quiet in the midst of the storm. And stay in that as you now bring to mind some aspect of your personality, or perhaps a mistake you feel you've made, or something that's in your experience right now that is troubling you. Someone you love is suffering, or something very hard to bear is present in your life. Breathe into that. Just accept it, embrace it. Give yourself compassion for the challenge of life that may be causing you suffering. What emotions does this bring up? inadequacy, fear, judgment. Where in your body are you feeling this emotion? Simply allow the feeling to be. Don't try in any way to change it. Give that feeling total acceptance in this moment. We all experience these emotions. It's part of our human condition. No judgment, just love. Place your hand gently on your heart. Breathe into your heart. And silently or aloud as you feel moved, repeat these affirmations after me. These are loving kindness affirmations. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. May I accept myself just as I am. Give yourself time to just be with these feelings and give them your loving attention. May I be safe. May I be peaceful. May I be kind to myself. May I accept myself just as I am. As you now ever so gently bring yourself back to this room, I invite you to listen to the words of Pema Chodron, a renowned Buddhist teacher of loving kindness, on the subject of self-compassion. She says, ordinarily we are swept away by habitual momentum. We don't interrupt our pattern even slightly. With practice, however, we learn to stay with a broken heart, with a nameless fear, with a desire for revenge. Sticking with uncertainty is how we learn to relax in the midst of chaos, how we learn to be cool when the ground beneath us suddenly disappears. We can bring ourselves back to the spiritual path countless times every day, simply by exercising our willingness to rest in the uncertainty of the present moment, again and again. And so it is. Namaste.